It's the filmmaking part that takes, I think, quite a long time to really understand how a scene is broken down, when they start, where they move to, what the continuity does look like. That's the thing that you really have to keep your eye on.
What kind of job has you driving around with an oven in the boot, armed with toothpicks, tweezers, knives, aprons, spray bottles, paintbrushes, glycerine, syringes, and a very particular understanding of how food behaves under hot lights and long shooting days? The answer is food styling. In this episode, I dive into the fascinating and often invisible world behind the scenes of film, where every dish you see on screen has been meticulously constructed, adjusted, and sometimes completely reinvented. How do you get fruit to sit perfectly on a towering cake? And how do you stop food from collapsing or drying out or simply looking wrong? And is it even meant to be eaten? My guest and I take this as our starting point, exploring the Radleys, a film about vampires and the darkness beneath the surface, and how food styling shifts with genre, from the seductive to the unsettling. We also talk about unexpected techniques, including why cooked watermelon can become a stylist's secret weapon, and what it really takes to make food look right on camera. From there, we move across other films that she's worked on, including The Roses with Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch. And what's the trickiest food to work with? What do food stylists need to understand about film itself? And under all that pressure, who actually eats the food? We also turn to Babette's Feast and the meditative, almost cathartic power of preparing food, not just for the screen, but as a way of processing memory, trauma, and care. Because food stylists might not always be credited, but they absolutely should be. So next time you watch a film and find yourself transfixed by what's on the plate, ask yourself, who made it look that good? So, in this episode of A Curious Appetite, I'm joined by Dorothy Barrick, a food stylist and home economist whose work brings food to life on screen in ways that are often invisible, but absolutely essential. I first came across Dot's work when I was recording an episode of Fear Feasts on the Radleys, a film where food, appetite and restraint sit at the very heart of the story. And it made me realise just how much food on screen is never just food. It's atmosphere and character and tension and desire. And since then, I've been fascinated by what happens behind the scenes. What does it actually mean to construct a meal for the camera? And how do you make something look beautiful, edible, repeatable, and narratively meaningful all at once? Well, Dot has worked across film and television, collaborating with many well-known actors, and more recently, her food styling can be seen in Emerald Fennell's Saltburn, which has a heart-wrenching dinner table scene, actually, and The Roses, alongside Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch, where she navigates everything from delicate plated dishes to chaotic and large-scale food scenes. So in this conversation, we explore illusion, labour, creativity, and the strange, meticulous world of food styling for the screen. And I have to say, Dot, every time I see the food that you style online, it completely takes my breath away. I do follow you on Instagram. There's such a sense of precision and beauty to it, but also incredible versatility. And what's so fascinating is that you've had several successful creative careers, from fashion design to modelling and accessories. And I wonder if there's a kind of manual skill or way of working with your hands that carries across into your food styling from that, do you think?
Hi, Alessandra. Yes, that's an interesting question. I think definitely fashion design, and my last job in fashion was kind of print research and accessories design. So very much shape and color, and things like contrasting colors, how they really pop out and look great to the eye. It's the same thing in food.
Yes. Yes, you're absolutely right. And for the kind of listeners that may not be familiar with the role, what does a food stylist or home economist actually do on a film set? Would you mind telling us?
Home economist Food stylist is kind of more descriptive, I think, because we are basically doing edible food props. We're kind of in the set decorating, almost, we work closely with props. So it's preparing what might be scripted
Yeah.
in a TV or film, or it might be background. It might be very insignificant sometimes. It's just having
Yeah.
people in the background in a restaurant at the end of a meal. It really depends.
And I first came across your work through the Radleys, and it made me realise how much food can shape the emotional tone of a scene. When you read a script, what are you looking for first if you read a script?
Yes. Well, sometimes you're given a script, sometimes you're not. Like for the Radleys, I believe it wasn't originally my job. I kind of somebody kind of passed it along to me.
Right.
And I was maybe given script pages, but not the whole script. But to be honest, when you're the lead, it's helpful. It's very helpful to read the whole script because you then kind of know where things are. I've gotten in trouble before not being given enough information.
Right.
Something like the Radleys, I was kind of given an idea of what the film was about and the script pages and kind of the perfect suburban family for really lurking underneath were these vampires. So things like blood and beetroot was used in smoothies
Yes.
and things, I think was an obvious type of thing to do. But yes, when I am the lead, which is not all the time, and you get to read the full script, it's so much more interesting.
Yes.
Well, really.
And it's funny because in the Radleys, the main character, she is obviously very dedicated to creating these wonderful family meals, especially nice breakfast and everything. And, not to spoil it too much, but they don't need to eat an awful lot of food because they're vampires. But it's just like the amount of food in that film was so enormous. When it came to Fear Feast, which is my other podcast on food and film and horror, I had to talk about that film. And so I'm so happy I did, because that's how I actually came across your work. So you've worked with some very well-known actors. How does collaboration work in practice? Do actors tend to engage with the food as part of their performance, or do they kind of leave that entirely in your hands?
Well, actually, I think it goes the other way. They're much more important. It's kind of me deferring to that. I have to be the one to be prepared to let them do their job, if that makes sense.
Right, yes.
And then there's always a discussion about dietary requirements and what, if they'll be eating, they might not. So you have to come prepared with loads of stuff. And let's see, there's one real show, one of my first big shows called The Great. There was an actor called Nicholas Holt, and he was great because he was like like in the show, he was really supposed to be eating, and he ate.
He really did.
And so you had to come prepared. And it was really fun because he was so lovely and polite and also so game to eat whatever it was.
I love that. Isn't he the one in About a Boy?
Yes.
With, yes, of course, with Hugh Grant, and he throws that big piece of bread at a duck. I remember that scene in the film. I love it. Oh, that's so good. And it must be so satisfying as well when that happens,
Yes.
I still think that Home Economist is quite an evocative title. Do you think it reflects the work, or do you think that nowadays this role has evolved into something which is much closer to a sort of visual storytelling?
Well, Home Economist for me slightly makes me cringe sometimes, but to be honest, it is descriptive because it's not just food. You need to kind of problem solve and know, how do you stick fruit on a really high tower and get it to stay and look, is there wire and sewing? There's kind of weird home economy type of skills that you may need to know. You do need to know inside out how to cook, how food reacts to lights and heat and things like that. So in the end, although I think it sounds nicer, food stylist,
yes,
economist, it does make sense.
Yes. Yeah. It is, It is, I think, a bit of a, it sounds a bit dated, but I see what you mean. Yes, absolutely. I also prefer kind of the idea of food styling. I think
Yeah.
it's, yeah, more
It
adequate.
just sounds a bit 1950s to me.
Yeah, I know.
You
You're
know?
right.
Yeah.
And well, because I'm obviously a little bit prone to investigating the darker side of food, when it came to the Radleys, and we're talking about a family of vampires, do you think you approached the food differently because of that? Was there something that you had to do to make things slightly uncanny or unsettling?
That idea of like the darkness lurking underneath, and that's kind of what you
Mm,
had mentioned as well, is the use of like the darker colors and blood
yeah.
red. And if I've ever done any kind of, I haven't done that many horror things, but they are quite fun. I stood in for somebody cutting open a cake for the girlfriend. It was
Mm,
like ooze, like bloody guts, and
yeah.
like play
That's
play.
what I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you, do you think it is different with different genres? So if you're doing something which is more horror, does that change compared to something more naturalistic? Do you need to put in more effort into that, do you think? Or,
Well, it kind of runs on the fake food, a bit of the fakery, fake food.
yeah.
What might go in and look like an awful, you could use a bit of like that kind of cherry pie filling
Yeah.
with like cooked figs and,
Yes.
maybe the membranes of pomegranate that might look like brain,
Yes.
so you just have to play around, which I love. I love fake.
I heard you speak one time about how you recreated sushi, but obviously seafood is quite difficult to maintain in optimum condition, especially on a set when you're working long hours, so that you actually used pear for that to create a sashimi or a sushi.
I did. Also, I think, you don't sashimi like a raw fish under the hot lights.
Yeah,
It's like food safety sketchy.
of course.
So another thing is like cooked watermelon can look exactly like tuna sashimi. It's not bad.
It goes a bit darker, I
It
guess, when
goes
you cook it.
darker in the
Yes.
soy sauce. You bake it for a while. It's a very cool trick.
I love that. Sorry, I'm so fascinated by you.
That's all right. I'm
Because
so
it's
fascinated by you and your
well,
food history,
thank you,
actually.
but it's just your world is one that I'm discovering quite recently because I have done a lot of work behind the scenes, but more for recipe books where I see how it works, but I think I don't know if there's as much pressure there as it is on a film set, you see. So I wanted to know, like, how closely do you actually work with directors and production designers? And do you think that dish functions a little bit like a costume or design, even?
Well, it depends on what kind of a job. It could be, I could just be standing basically somebody calls me and says, I can't do this job. Can you stand in for me? And I might get sent just a mood board or a
Mm,
reference, or they might talk me through something. Or now I seem to sometimes get bit bigger jobs since I've been doing
right.
this for a while. And then if I'm kind of what they call the lead
Mm,
food stylist or home economist, I would be sent the script.
right.
And then you do work closer, which is much more interesting, really, because then
Yeah.
you kind of more involved in the creative aspect of it. But even if I'm standing in, it could be creative, or it could be, scrambled eggs on toast.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess even there, because I'm thinking with a food like that, say, you just mentioned scrambled eggs on toast. I mean, you're still, I think, under pressure in some ways. And even though it might look effortless, I guess that there is a lot of preparation even behind that kind of single scene, single food. What's one of the most difficult foods that you've prepared that took you really a long time and maybe you weren't expecting it?
Let's see, when I first started doing like fondant cakes, I had no idea. I had literally no idea what I was doing. So I had to just kind of fake it. And then I had to teach myself. And
Mm.
I I had to YouTube it
Oh,
and kind of keep rolling it out, and it would rip, and I would have to just keep trying again.
yeah.
And now I can do it very easily. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
Practice, yeah, practice and repetition is
yes.
important. And I guess that's one of the biggest challenges as well, in terms of, as someone who's working in this, probably the continuity, the timing, and the repetition, because food can be unpredictable sometimes. I've seen what it means in the fashion sense, behind the scenes, when, you have to guarantee continuity, and that means having dozens of dresses that are exactly the same, but with, a mud stain on that keeps getting smaller and stuff like that. And I'm just in awe of people who work, because there's nothing worse than watching a film and seeing someone's hairstyle change from one second to another. And it means they haven't maintained, some sort of continuity. And I suppose with food, that would be really visible. So I'm interested, just to kind of know from you, when is food always fully edible? How often are you replacing something to keep the freshness?
Let's see. All of those variabilities are extremely important.
Mm.
And I think from like the cooking aspect, I'm comfortable with everything and I know how much I need to bring for
Yeah.
what size of a scene.
Oh,
But it's the filmmaking part that takes, I think, quite a long time to really understand how a scene is broken down, when they start, where they move to, what the continuity would it does look like. That's the thing that you really have to keep your eye on. And that's very tricky, especially with a larger scene. And that's where, I still assist
yeah.
because, the only way to learn how to do those very big jobs is
Mhm.
to assist on them.
Yes, it sounds terrifying. Like, it
It's
sounds like a lot of
terrifying.
pressure. It sounds like a lot of pressure. I know that, after time and with experience, that probably dies down, but it just seems like
It
it's like,
doesn't.
it doesn't, does it? No. It's like working in a restaurant, but it's more pressure because, I don't know, it just feels like there's more people kind of waiting on things. And sometimes some foods must be very difficult to work with. And, and
Definitely.
yeah. So one of the things that, yeah, I was wondering was also, because often foods look absolutely delicious. And is there any food that you thought was always very delicious, but because you've had to replicate it so much, you can't stand it anymore?
Oh, let's see. I would definitely never eat a jelly. No.
No aspic.
No aspic, no jellies. No.
In the Wuthering Heights, there's this scene with all the aspic and the jelly. Do you know how that jelly was made?
I know who made it.
Yes.
Uh, Catherine Kunzig, she's an incredible food stylist and home economist, but very big here in the UK. And I won't give her tips and secrets or anything, but I do know all those jellies have a lot of gelatin in them.
Yes. It's not something that we would bite into with gusto. Let's put it that way.
No, no, yeah, no, you wouldn't bite into it with gusto.
Especially, I'm thinking of one particular specific scene, the one with the fish.
Yes, she did. She talked about that on a cherry bomb meeting, actually.
I was there.
And
Yeah.
oh, you were there. I was
Yeah.
yes, exactly. It was, and I think that was tricky for her.
Yes. It looked beautiful, but it sounded so detailed. And I know that one thing she mentioned was that a lot of what she made, the camera didn't even, I mean, maybe it filmed it, but it didn't make the final cut. So I always think that's a shame, but you can't, things get cut out all the time. You can't
That
really help
happened.
that. No. What tools do you always have with you? For example, can I ask like what your top 5 tools are?
Ooh, top 5 tools. Let's see.
Because I do imagine you're a bit like a chef who goes around with always her knives and goes around with this kind of equipment or instruments that they can't do without. So,
Let's see. Small knives,
mm,
toothpicks,
mm,
because sometimes you need to put things together
yeah,
without them being seen. And
yes,
they're, let's see, like a pastry brush, like a
mm,
silicone pastry brush, so it doesn't leave hair or to oil things.
yes.
water and glycerine in a little spray bottle to make things
Yes.
kind of
Look fresh.
look fresh. Let's see. I always have like small flat cutting boards. I mean, the amount of stuff that you bring is just in case.
And you might use all those things, or you might, it just depends, I guess. Every job is different.
Every job is different, but you generally come with like, I'll be doing something really simple. I'm like, why do I have like 6 bags in my whole, but better safe than sorry.
Like actual luggage with you.
Yes, yes. An oven in the back of my car, air
Of course.
fryer.
I wanted to bring in a question now about food and memory, because I'm really interested in how food can function as a form of mediated remembrance and even reworking past trauma. You've mentioned in your Cherry Bomb interview alongside Olivia Colman that you love Babette's Feast, which is a film that tells a story of a French chef. And I should say it's based on a book by Isaac Dinesen or Karen Blixen. And it tells a story of a French chef who flees Paris after the violence of the Commune. And having lost everything, her family, her home, and her position at the Café Anglais, she ends up in a small and very austere community in Norway where she lives in a quiet exile for many years. But unexpectedly, one day she wins the lottery, and instead of returning to Paris, she spends everything on recreating a magnificent French dinner in honor of the community and effectively restaging the cuisine of her former life. And the menu includes dishes like turtle soup and blinis demidoff with caviar and quail in sarcophagus, and all accompanied by these extraordinary wines like Veuve Clicquot. And what I find so compelling is that this meal feels like an act of remembrance and almost a reconstruction of a lost world through food. And it transforms those who eat it and dissolves all their tensions and reshapes relationships. And it's kind of a collective release. So I was wondering whether that idea resonates with you at all, the idea that cooking can carry memory and even grief, and that through it, something can be both preserved and transformed. And I wondered whether that idea connects you with your own experience and whether films like Babette's Feast have influenced your relationship to food in your work.
Yes. I mean, I taught myself through kind of a tough, very tough time in my life in lockdown and something going on.
Yeah.
Pie making and cake and fondant, very intricate things that I didn't really know how to do, but I had enough knowledge. But the kind of meditative quietness of those tasks, like working with hot water pastry, and I think it helps you to work through things. I don't know, at the time and the quietness of it, you don't necessarily need music or a podcast or anything going on, just sitting with yourself and that task and that kind of repetitive thing.
Yes.
Has definitely helped me. And to be honest, I think it's still baking is something, if I have to work through something, I enjoy now myself doing that. So, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. I think they should teach it in therapy sessions.
It's very cathartic, isn't it?
It is.
And I always see, now that I'm getting to speak with you more, and this idea of being a food stylist and really adjusting things visually as well, so that they fit in with an aesthetic, and also the transformation of it in a certain sense and what that can do to a scene is a bit Babette-like, because she wants to transform her community through food. I feel like that is then immortalized forever in a film. You'll always see that. I just think that's amazing. I think that's fantastic. I mean, I'm a big lover of films and the photography of it. And I just think food contributes so much to that. And it's so very important. So yes, I love that. And so when I remembered Babette's Feast and you mentioned it, I thought, well, that's a parallelism that won't escape me, because I think it's really apt. And I totally agree with this idea that it can be very therapeutic as well. And you're really focused on the movements and the repetition of it. And thank you for sharing all this and how you have practiced it. And it came about during COVID, which was a difficult time. and we had more time to ourselves. And you've obviously put that time to extremely good use. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because this podcast is called A Curious Appetite, I would love to ask you, is there a food memory from your childhood that has stayed with you, or something that you can really recall vividly in terms of taste and smell or atmosphere?
There are many foods, definitely. And things I think that carry on in the way I eat or don't eat. I mean, one of the kind of more disgusting memories is my mom was a very adventurous cook. She still is, and is a very good cook. But she served us beef tongue once. And I think the taste and like the texture of taste buds, we were all so freaked out. And I think it was just, it's such a memory that I was just like, so disgusted.
Yes.
Because she always serves such lovely, gorgeous things.
What's behind this change? I'm so curious now to know. Was there a reason why she served it? Did someone give it to her and she wanted to use it? Or did she read something and thought, this is good for them? I wonder.
I wonder because she's very like California cuisine, artichokes and fresh vegetables. So beef tongue was really, really kind of out there. We were all just like, it's so gross.
Horrified. Yeah, I know.
Horrified. But, then I have memories of very, I'm 53. So 1970s style kind of casseroles, like that's my comfort, Nice. I still kind of love those type of things. It's pure comfort for me.
Oh, that sounds lovely. They're delicious. Yes, I love casseroles as well. And thinking about celebration, is there a particular dish or kind of food that you associate with moments of joy or gathering, or maybe marking something important to you?
Definitely seafood. I'm a West Coast girl from Seattle, and my mom's from San Francisco. And I lived in France for many years. So like a big plateau de fruits de mer, is my celebration.
Oh, that sounds delicious. I love that.
Here, what I do is sometimes I'll just take, like, if I have a day off, I'll take the bus all the way down to Borough Market. And most people would be disgusted by this, but have like whelks.
Oh, love them.
And love them whelks for breakfast.
Get your toothpick out that you always carry with you.
Whelks, oysters. Yes. Seafood, for sure.
Nice. Beautiful. You want to let people know where they can find you so they can see all the wonderful things you get up to?
People can find me. I'm kind of erratic on my posting, but at Dots Cookin' with no G at the end, Dots Cookin' on Instagram. But I will pick that back up now that I have some time.
Yay.
But it's hard to do when you're flat out on crazy film hours.
I know, I can imagine. It must be absolutely hectic when they call you, and also you're probably traveling and everything else.
Well, it's mostly here in the UK. Locations vary, which is fun, which I love.
Dot, thank you so much. I'm not going to take up any more of your time. You've been so kind to say yes.
Oh, my pleasure. This has been so much fun. I was listening earlier to A is for...
Oh, yes. A is for Apple. What do you think?
I loved it. The Fanny Craddock. Oh, my gosh. It's so good. It's really great. No, fascinating. And I love the dynamic between you three. I really enjoy it.
They are really fun to record with them. I'm so lucky.
You can tell. It's fun to listen to.
This has been A Curious Appetite, podcast about food, memory, and the strange ways in which what we eat begins to shape who we are. If you enjoyed this episode, you can follow, rate, and share it wherever you listen. It makes more of a difference than you think. You can also find more reflections on essays and behind-the-scenes material on my Substack and my website, alessandrapino.com, and YouTube channel, A Curious Appetite Podcast with Dr Alessandra Pino. Oh, and if you have any suggestions or ideas or something you'd like me to explore, do get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. The email address is acuriousappetite@gmail.com.